everyone, I'm Tina with Overall Adventures. Thank you so much for being here. Since, dare I say, summer is kind of starting to wind down at the end of August, I thought it would be a really great opportunity to use your journal to reflect on the summer that you've had so far and think about what you might want or want to kind of manifest or dream up for the fall. So I will be dividing this video into 4 different categories, and or maybe it's more like 4 different ways that you can use your journal, or 4 different kind of functions for your journal. And this is just to help organize those writing prompts. So we've got documenting, right? So you're using your journal for documenting your history or your world or what's going on, practically speaking, and in your day-to-day life. We've also got introspection, which is I'm quite partial to, but it's using your journal for reflection and for processing your emotions and processing your experience. And then we've got creativity, which is or creative writing, which is really more using your journal to expand on your writing. So whether that's like poetry or music or prose, but looking at the world and using your writing to write creatively about that. And then the last one would be dreams or future manifesting and things like that. So without further ado, we're going to start talking about documenting, but specifically journaling prompts that are related to summer, because that's where we're at. Okay, so when I think of documentation for the summertime, I always want to think of, for starters, what's my best memory from this summer, right? What's something that happened that's kind of like this high point of my summer? Another question is, what's something that's always going to remind you of summer 2021, or whichever summer that it is when you're watching this video? Another one, in contrast to what's a kind of big memory or important memory that you want to remember from this summer, would be what's something really small that happened, or it could even just be an item in your house, or something that kind of struck you or you learned about this summer that you want to document. So we've got a big picture of like a big memory or a big thing that happened to you, but also on the flip side, what's something really small that you want to focus on, that you want to remember? It could be, I know for me speaking, I am back in the U.S. for the first time in over 2 years. So something that's really struck me is just the green that I see all the time. So I might try to document like what different shades of green, and try to really capture and describe these different shades of green. That's just a little example. So what's something big that you want to remember, and what's something small that you want to remember from this summer? Another thing that I think is really important when it comes to documenting is documenting the news, documenting the world, and using your journal as a piece of live history. So think about what's happened, not only just in your life. Let's start again zooming into yourself, but now let's go a little bit bigger. What's the news, or what happened this summer in your town? A little bit bigger, maybe your state or your country, and then our world. So using your journal or our journals to document the news, and specifically what has happened this summer. One thing I used to do when I was starting off journaling is I remember I would like write down like, what are the gas prices, and like how much is it for like a pack of gum, which is really random. But I'm talking about more like the details of your history, and the current history of our world. So documenting that could be really interesting. Another one, I am obsessed with food, so any kind of food that you've been loving this summer, just kind of writing, not just documenting, but maybe favorite recipes that you've had, or some kind of success that you've had there. Also, you could document weather, dates. You could document books that you read, TV shows that you watched, poets that you loved, tricks you were able to teach your dogs. I don't know, anything kind of like factual that happened to you this summer, you could capture that. Another one kind of based off of that would be music. So you could create a playlist or multiple different playlists that remind you of this summer, and for each song kind of describing a specific moment that song reminds you of. It could be something that happened actually that summer, but it could be like, I listened to this song and it reminds me of just the colors of a sunset, right? Or it reminds me of, I don't know, watching 2 hummingbirds flutter over a flower or share a flower together, something like that. To move on to the next category, which is this kind of using journaling for introspection and reflection, which is a personal favorite. You could start off with, of course, like what went well this summer. So what are some things that you were able to not just accomplish, but also like internally, who have you become this summer and what went well? What did you do well in that regard? And of course, what areas do you want to grow? And how can you continue to push yourself to grow? One that will take us into a creative side as well, but making a list of what you've learned this summer, like really simple, just bullet point list. What did you learn? And I'll show you in the next bit of how you're going to turn that into a poem, actually. I thought of this when when I think of summer, I think of such solar fire energy. So how have you shined this summer? How have you shined? And what moments did you shine? Or how have you shined kind of in your own internal world? And what made you shine? Is there something that you could, was it traveling to a new place? Was it seeing family? Was it, sharing something vulnerable with someone else? What made you feel like you shined this summer? And on that, how can you shine more? How can you take that like light of summertime and take it into fall and winter and to keep that kind of glow alive? And that kind of takes me right into the next one. It's kind of similar, but I don't know, what makes you glow? What makes you glow? What makes you solar? What makes you like the sun? What lights you up, I think, is always a great question to return to in your journal. And last but not least, what's your biggest discovery or realization or takeaway from this summer? And it's pretty straightforward. What's your biggest discovery, and how are you going to use that in the coming months? Next section would be creative. So this would be creative writing, poetry, prose, songs, collage, things like that. And I thought maybe you could use the how have you shined, or how can you shine more, and maybe turn that into some kind of poem, or some kind of lyrics or something like that. So taking those answers and seeing if you can find more figurative language to describe, instead of just saying something like, seeing my family makes me shine bright. How could you take that phrase and use some figurative language to maybe make a poem about how seeing family after many, many months of being cooped up inside, how has that, made you glow, or something like that. For those of you that have watched my channel know that I really like letters. So write a letter to this summer, Imagine this summer itself was a person sitting across from you at a cafe and you want to write them a letter. What would you say to them? What would you say? What would you maybe express some kind of gratitude? Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're angry at the summer. Maybe you're have gratitude, or you want to express love or something like that. So think about that. Write a letter to summer 2021. I wonder what that would look like. Another idea is I love odes, like an ode, ODE, like a poem of praise and like worship almost. But I just think they're so fascinating. So pick a subject or pick a topic of something that you really love this summer. It could be simple as watermelon and lime. That's something that that's one of my summer treats that I just love. It always reminds me of summer. And write a poem about an ode, a praise of watermelon and lime. And how does that, that's such a great memento for your summer. It could be an ode to dragonflies. It could be an ode to crickets. It could be an ode to the night sky, or the sunset, or sand between your toes, whatever it is. So pick something that you really kind of fell in love with this summer, and write a praise poem to that. And if the word poem freaks you out, that's okay. Just forget the word poem and just think about writing something that just shows how much you love that item or that object or that idea. In your introspection or reflection, previous section that I talked about, one thing that I said was to make a list of something that you've learned, or a list of all the things you've learned this summer. And I learned this in a workshop. I can't remember which one, but basically you take that list and kind of think about the order of the list and think about if you can expand on some of your ideas to make them, again, to bring in more figurative language, but take that list and basically think of it as prose or a poem. So it could sound, so for example, here are some things I learned this summer. I could write something like, and I'm just making this up off my head. I could, let's say, falling in love with crickets in the night, the juice of a fresh watermelon from a farm stand. It doesn't all have to be positive either. It could be like, never forget to fill your car up with gas before you go on a long road trip, and make sure the tent is closed tight. Hold tight to those that you love, and always be the first to say you're sorry, or something like that. So it's just a little bit more poetic than just saying like, I learned that I really miss my family, right? So taking the list that you learned and trying to transform it into a poem. And then last but not least, your last kind of category of journaling here is your dreams or your visions. So think about, what would be your ideal vacation? If you had a month more time of summer, what would you do, right? Write that out, maybe add some photos, something like that. Again, to expand on that, what's your ideal summer day? And can you still squeeze that summer day and that ideal summer day in before you have to go back to school or back to work, right? Another one on that, like, what do you want for your last summer days before that weather starts to turn, before the leaves start to change? What do you want to do or accomplish or experience before we have fall come and set in? And again, taking me to fall. So what are and if you want, you can start to now do a little bit of dreaming, visioning, manifesting, whatever you want to call it, for the fall. What do you want to happen? How do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? Who do you want to transform into be? Because fall is all about change, I think, and a new beginning, which brings me to the next prompt was, I always view the end of summer as like a fresh start. Coming to the fall is fresh. What do you want to let go of from this summer? And what are you looking for from this fresh start? So I hope that was helpful. Those are just a bunch of kind of rambly journaling prompts to hopefully inspire you and get you back into your journal and enjoying the last of these warm summer days. Thank you so much for joining me. Please feel free to leave a comment below if you have another summer journaling prompt that you enjoy. Thanks so much.